The autumn morning in London started like any other day. The streets were busy with people rushing to work, and the usual sounds of the city filled the air. But inside the royal palace, Prince William and Princess Catherine were preparing for something different. They had received a letter 3 weeks ago that had touched their hearts deeply. The letter was from a young mother named Sarah Thompson, who lived in a small town in northern England. Sarah had written about her 8-year-old daughter, Emily, who was fighting a rare illness. The little girl had been in and out of hospitals for the past 2 years. Despite all the treatments and surgeries, Emily remained cheerful and brave. She loved watching the royal family on television and had decorated her hospital room with pictures of Prince William and Princess Kate. Emily often told her mother that she wanted to be a princess when she grew up, just like Kate. The letter wasn't asking for money or special treatment. Sarah simply wanted to share her daughter's story and thank the royal couple for being such positive role models. She mentioned how Emily would watch videos of royal events when she was feeling scared before her treatments. The young girl would pretend to wave like a princess and practice her curtsy, even when she was too weak to stand properly. William had read the letter aloud to Kate one evening after their own children had gone to bed. By the time he finished, both of them had tears in their eyes. They received thousands of letters every month, but something about this one was different. Perhaps it was the mother's simple honesty, or maybe it was the way she described her daughter's unwavering spirit despite facing such difficult challenges. Kate couldn't stop thinking about Emily. As a mother herself, she understood the pain of watching a child suffer. She imagined how helpless Sarah must feel, sitting by her daughter's bedside day after day. William noticed his wife's preoccupation and knew they had to do something. But what could they do that would truly make a difference? They discussed various options. They could send a signed photograph or arrange for some royal merchandise to be delivered. But both William and Kate felt these gestures, while kind, weren't enough. They wanted to do something more personal, something that would show this family they truly cared. After much thought, Kate suggested they visit Emily in person. William agreed immediately. They knew such a visit would be complicated. There would be security concerns, media attention, and protocol to consider. But they were determined to make it happen. They instructed their staff to arrange the visit in complete secrecy. They didn't want media coverage or publicity. This was to be a private moment between them and Emily's family. The planning took 2 weeks. The hospital staff was informed just days before the visit, and they were sworn to secrecy. Even Emily's mother wasn't told until the morning of the visit. When the hospital director called Sarah to inform her that the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge would be visiting her daughter that afternoon, she thought it was a prank. It took several minutes of explanation before she believed it was real. Sarah rushed to prepare Emily, but she didn't tell her who was coming. She simply said they would have special visitors and helped her daughter put on her favorite dress, a pink one with sparkles that Emily called her princess dress. The little girl was excited but had no idea what was about to happen. Meanwhile, William and Kate were making their own preparations. Kate had personally selected gifts for Emily, including a beautiful tiara that had belonged to her when she was a child. She also brought books, toys, and a special teddy bear wearing a miniature version of one of Kate's famous dresses. William added his own touches, including a letter he had written himself, telling Emily how brave he thought she was. The royal couple decided to travel without their usual entourage. They took just 2 security guards and drove in an unmarked car. They wanted this to be as normal and personal as possible. During the drive, Kate held the bag of gifts tightly, and William could see she was emotional. They talked about their own children and how fortunate they were that they were healthy. This visit was putting their own blessings into perspective. When they arrived at the hospital, they used a side entrance to avoid attention. The hospital director and a small group of senior staff met them, but the royal couple asked everyone except essential personnel to give them privacy. They wanted Emily and her family to feel comfortable, not overwhelmed by crowds of people. As they walked down the corridor toward Emily's room, Kate took William's hand. They could hear children's voices from other rooms, and the reality of where they were hit them. This wasn't a formal royal engagement with schedules and photo opportunities. This was real life, where children were fighting serious illnesses and families were facing their darkest hours. Outside Emily's door, they paused. William knocked gently, and Sarah's voice invited them in. When they entered, the look on Sarah's face was one of complete shock. She had been told about the visit just hours ago, but seeing the future king and Queen of England standing in her daughter's hospital room was surreal. But it was Emily's reaction that everyone would remember forever. The little girl's eyes grew wide as she recognized her visitors. For a moment, she was speechless. Then, despite the tubes and wires attached to her, she tried to sit up straighter and attempted a curtsy from her bed. Kate immediately rushed to her side, gently telling her not to worry about formalities. "Today," Kate said with a warm smile, "we're just friends coming to visit." What followed was one of the most touching hours the hospital staff had ever witnessed. Kate sat on the edge of Emily's bed while William pulled up a chair. They talked to Emily as if she were any other 8-year-old girl. They asked about her favorite colors, her hobbies, and what subjects she liked in school. Emily, initially shy, soon began to open up. She showed them her drawings and told them about her favorite Disney princesses. When Kate presented the tiara, Emily's face lit up with pure joy. With gentle hands, Kate placed it on the little girl's head, adjusting it carefully around the medical equipment. "Every princess needs a tiara," Kate said, and Emily beamed. William then read her a story from one of the books they had brought, using different voices for the characters, which made Emily giggle. Sarah stood in the corner, tears streaming down her face. She watched as her daughter, who had been so tired and withdrawn lately, came alive with excitement. The transformation was remarkable. Emily was laughing, chatting, and for those precious moments, she seemed to forget she was in a hospital at all. During the visit, Kate noticed Sarah's exhaustion. While William entertained Emily with magic tricks he had learned for his own children, Kate went to talk to Sarah. They sat together on a small sofa in the corner of the room. Mother to mother, they talked about the challenges of raising children, the fears that keep parents awake at night, and the strength that comes from love. Kate learned that Sarah had barely left the hospital in weeks. She had 2 other children at home, being cared for by their grandmother, and the family was struggling financially due to medical bills and Sarah's inability to work. Kate listened with genuine compassion, occasionally squeezing Sarah's hand in support. What happened next was completely unplanned. Kate asked Sarah if she could make a phone call. She called her assistant and arranged for several things to happen immediately. First, she organized for a professional photographer to come and take beautiful portraits of Emily and her family, not for publicity, but for them to keep. She also arranged for Sarah's other children to be brought to the hospital so the whole family could meet them. Within an hour, Emily's siblings arrived, 6-year-old Thomas and 4-year-old Lucy. Their eyes were as wide as Emily's had been when they saw who was in their sister's room. William immediately engaged them in conversation, getting down on the floor to play with toy cars with Thomas, while Lucy shyly showed Kate her stuffed rabbit. The photographer arrived and took candid shots of everyone together. These weren't stiff royal photographs, but natural moments. Kate helping Emily adjust her tiara, William making funny faces to make the children laugh, and the entire Thompson family together with their royal visitors. The children were delighted, and even Sarah managed to smile genuinely for the first time in weeks. As the visit extended beyond the planned hour, William noticed that Emily was starting to tire. Her energy, which had been so vibrant, was beginning to fade. But she was fighting to stay awake, not wanting this magical moment to end. Kate noticed too, and suggested they should let Emily rest, but not before one more surprise. From her bag, Kate pulled out a special invitation. It was handwritten on palace stationery, inviting the entire Thompson family to visit Kensington Palace once Emily was well enough to travel. "We want to show you our home," Kate said, "and introduce you to George, Charlotte, and Louis. They would love to meet you." Emily clutched the invitation to her chest as if it were the most precious thing in the world. Sarah was overwhelmed. This wasn't just a royal visit. It was the beginning of a genuine connection. William and Kate gave their personal contact information to Sarah, insisting she keep them updated on Emily's progress. As they prepared to leave, Emily asked Kate a question that touched everyone's heart. "Princess Kate," she said softly, "am I brave enough to be a real princess?" Kate knelt beside the bed, took Emily's small hand in hers, and spoke words that would stay with the little girl forever. "Emily, you are braver than any princess in any story. Your courage makes you royalty in the most important way." William added his own words of encouragement, telling Emily that true nobility comes from how we face challenges and how we treat others with kindness. He praised her strength and told her that she was an inspiration to them. The goodbye was emotional. Kate hugged Emily gently, careful of all the medical equipment. William high-fived Thomas and gave Lucy a small wave. They embraced Sarah, who whispered her thanks through her tears. As they left the room, they could hear Emily excitedly telling her siblings about everything that had happened. In the corridor outside, several nurses who had been watching through the window were crying. They had seen many things in their careers, but this genuine act of kindness from the royal couple had touched them deeply. The hospital director thanked William and Kate, but they insisted no thanks were necessary. They were grateful for the opportunity to meet such a special family. The drive back to the palace was quiet. Both William and Kate were processing the emotional experience. They had gone to bring joy to a sick child, but they had received something precious in return, a reminder of what truly matters in life. The courage of a little girl facing enormous challenges and the love of a mother who would do anything for her children had affected them profoundly. That evening, as they tucked their own children into bed, William and Kate held them a little tighter and were a little more patient with bedtime requests for extra stories or glasses of water. The visit to Emily had reminded them that every healthy day with their children was a gift not to be taken for granted. What the royal couple didn't know was that their visit had been partially witnessed by a junior nurse who had taken a single photo on her phone, not of the royals, but of Emily's face when she first saw them enter her room. The pure joy captured in that moment was something she felt the world needed to see. She struggled with whether to share it, knowing the visit was meant to be private. After much consideration, she decided to post the photo on social media with a simple caption, "Sometimes miracles come in the form of kindness from unexpected places." She didn't mention who the visitors were, but the tiara on Emily's head and the glimpse of a familiar profile in the background were enough for people to guess. Within hours, the photo had been shared thousands of times. People were moved by the obvious joy on the little girl's face. Soon, reporters were calling the hospital, trying to get information about what had happened. The hospital maintained its silence, respecting the privacy of all involved. But stories have a way of emerging, especially stories about genuine human kindness. Other parents in the ward began sharing what they had witnessed. They talked about how the royal couple had spent over 2 hours with the family, how they had played with the children, and how there had been no cameras or publicity team. This wasn't a photo opportunity. It was a real visit from two people who simply wanted to bring joy to a sick child. The nurses who had witnessed the visit added their own observations. They spoke about Kate's genuine tears when she hugged Sarah, about William getting on his hands and knees to play with the younger children, and about how both royals had treated everyone, from the senior doctors to the cleaning staff, with equal respect and warmth. As the story spread, something unexpected happened. People across the nation began sharing their own stories of quiet kindness they had witnessed or received. The hashtag quiet gestures began trending, with thousands of people posting about moments when someone had shown them unexpected compassion. It became a movement of sorts, encouraging people to perform acts of kindness without seeking recognition. The media tried desperately to get official confirmation or statement from the palace, but none came. William and Kate had made it clear to their staff that this visit was not to be used for publicity. They had no interest in taking credit or having photos released. Their silence on the matter only made the public respect them more. However, the impact of their visit extended far beyond that single day. The hospital reported an increase in volunteers wanting to help in the children's ward. Donations to children's health charities spiked. People were inspired by the example set by the future king and queen that true leadership sometimes means stepping away from the spotlight to make a difference in individual lives. For the Thompson family, the visit marked a turning point. Emily's spirits remained high in the days following the royal encounter. She wore her tiara every day, and the nurses reported that she was more cooperative with her treatments, often saying she had to get better so she could visit the palace. Her positive attitude seemed to be helping her recovery. Sarah found herself surrounded by unexpected support. Other parents in the ward, inspired by what they had witnessed, created a support network. They took turns sitting with each other's children so parents could take breaks, shared meals, and offered emotional support. The sense of community that developed was beautiful to see. The gifts William and Kate had brought weren't just material objects. They carried emotional weight. The teddy bear became Emily's constant companion during treatments. The books were read over and over, with Emily often asking nurses to read them in Prince William's voice. The letter William had written was framed and hung where Emily could see it from her bed, a constant reminder that important people believed in her courage. 2 weeks after the visit, Sarah received a package at the hospital. Inside were photographs from the visit, beautiful, professional images that captured the joy of that day. There was also a note from Kate, checking on Emily's progress and sharing that her own children had been asking about their new friend Emily. The personal touch of the handwritten note meant everything to Sarah. The story of the royal visit continued to ripple outward. Teachers used it as an example in classrooms, discussing kindness and empathy. Parents talked to their children about the importance of caring for others. Religious leaders referenced it in sermons about compassion. What had been intended as a private gesture had become a public inspiration. A month after the visit, something remarkable happened. Emily's condition began to improve significantly. Her doctors were cautiously optimistic, noting that her positive mental state seemed to be contributing to her physical recovery. While they were careful not to attribute medical improvements solely to emotional factors, they acknowledged that Emily's renewed spirit was playing a role in her healing process. The invitation to visit Kensington Palace remained on Emily's bedside table, a goal to work toward. She told everyone who would listen about her plans to have tea with Princess Kate and play with Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. The anticipation gave her something positive to focus on during difficult treatment days. Other families in similar situations began writing to the palace, sharing their own stories. While William and Kate couldn't visit everyone, they made sure each letter received a personal response. They also quietly increased their support for children's health charities, funding programs that provided emotional support for families dealing with childhood illness. The junior nurse who had shared the original photo wrote a blog post about what she had witnessed. She described the genuine emotion she saw from the royal couple, how they had treated Emily and her family with such respect and care, and how the visit had affected everyone who witnessed it. Her post was shared millions of times and translated into dozens of languages. International media picked up the story, praising William and Kate for their compassion and authenticity. Royal watchers noted that this was a perfect example of how the younger generation of royals was modernizing the monarchy, maintaining dignity and tradition while showing genuine human connection. But perhaps the most significant impact was on William and Kate themselves. The visit to Emily had reinforced their commitment to using their position to make real differences in people's lives. They began incorporating more unannounced, private visits into their schedules. They understood that while grand gestures and official engagements were important, sometimes the most meaningful contributions happened quietly, away from cameras and fanfare. The hospital ward where Emily stayed became known for its positive atmosphere. The staff reported higher morale, and families found strength in the community that had formed. The story of the royal visit became part of the ward's folklore, told to new families as an example of how unexpected kindness can transform difficult situations. 3 months after the initial visit, Emily was well enough to go home for the first time in months. The medical team was thrilled with her progress. While she still had a long road ahead, the improvement was remarkable. On the day of her discharge, she wore her tiara and carried the teddy bear William and Kate had given her. As the Thompson family prepared to leave the hospital, they found the nursing staff lined up in the corridor to say goodbye. It was an emotional moment, with tears of joy replacing the tears of fear that had been so common. Emily, still wearing her tiara, waved regally at everyone, bringing smiles to faces throughout the ward. The story might have ended there, but it didn't. True to their word, William and Kate stayed in touch with the family. When Emily was strong enough, the promised visit to Kensington Palace took place. This time, there were no photographers, no media, just two families spending time together. The royal children played with the Thompson children as if they were old friends. During that palace visit, something beautiful happened. Princess Charlotte, who was close to Emily's age, took her by the hand and showed her around the palace gardens. The two girls picked flowers together, and Charlotte placed one behind Emily's ear, declaring her an official palace friend. It was a simple gesture, but it meant the world to Emily. The connection between the families continued. Birthday cards arrived for the Thompson children, always with personal notes. When Emily faced setbacks in her treatment, encouraging messages would arrive from the palace. When she had victories, the royal family celebrated with them from afar. A year after the initial hospital visit, Emily's health had improved dramatically. She was attending school regularly and participating in activities she hadn't been able to do for years. Her mother, Sarah, often reflected on how that unexpected royal visit had been a turning point, not just medically, but emotionally for their entire family. The impact on the wider community continued as well. The hashtag quiet gestures had evolved into a movement, with people around the world performing acts of kindness and sharing stories of compassion. Schools created programs around the concept, teaching children that true nobility comes from how we treat others. The hospital where Emily had been treated reported lasting changes. The sense of community among families had become institutionalized, with official support groups and programs developing from what had started spontaneously. The children's ward was redecorated with artwork inspired by princesses and princes, reminding young patients that they too could be royal in their courage. William and Kate never publicly discussed the visit in detail, maintaining the privacy they had promised the Thompson family. But those close to them noticed changes. They were more likely to extend visits when they saw someone who needed extra attention. They asked more questions about the individuals they met during official engagements. They ensured their own children understood the importance of kindness and empathy. The photograph that had started it all, the image of Emily's joy when the royal couple entered her room, became iconic. It was used in campaigns for children's charities, always with the family's permission. But more than raising money, it raised awareness about the power of human connection and compassion. As time passed, the story of William and Kate's quiet gesture became legendary. It was cited as an example of how those in positions of privilege could use their status to bring light into dark places. University courses on leadership used it as a case study. Medical professionals discussed the impact of emotional support on healing. Emily herself became an advocate for other children facing health challenges. As she grew older, she would visit hospitals, wearing her tiara and sharing her story. She would tell young patients about the day she met a real prince and princess, but more importantly, she would tell them about courage, hope, and the power of kindness. The Thompson family story inspired others to share their own experiences of receiving unexpected kindness during difficult times. A book was eventually written, with proceeds going to children's health charities. Sarah contributed a chapter about how one letter to the palace had changed their lives, not through any grand gesture, but through genuine human compassion. Years later, when Emily was a teenager and her health challenges were behind her, she was invited to speak at a charity event. In the audience were William and Kate, there to support the young woman they had watched grow from a sick little girl into a confident advocate for others. When Emily saw them, she smiled, and gave a perfect curtsy, not because protocol demanded it, but because it was her way of saying thank you for a gesture that had meant everything. The ripple effects of that quiet hospital visit continued to spread. Policies changed in hospitals to better support families. Charitable giving increased. Most importantly, countless individuals were inspired to look for opportunities to make quiet gestures of their own, to be the unexpected kindness in someone else's difficult day. What had started as a simple response to a mother's letter had become something much larger. It showed that leadership isn't always about grand pronouncements or official acts. Sometimes the most powerful thing a leader can do is to show up quietly, without fanfare, and simply care. The nation had indeed been moved to tears, not by tragedy, but by the beauty of human compassion. In a world often focused on the negative, the story of William and Kate's quiet gesture reminded everyone that kindness still existed, that people in positions of power could choose empathy, and that sometimes the smallest acts could have the biggest impact. As the years went by, the story became part of the narrative of William and Kate's approach to royal duty. They had shown that being royal wasn't just about ceremonies and traditions. It was about using privilege to touch individual lives. They had demonstrated that true nobility comes not from titles or crowns, but from the willingness to see others' pain and try to ease it. The tiara that Kate had given Emily became a family treasure, carefully preserved and full of meaning. It represented not just a gift from royalty, but a moment when a little girl's courage was recognized and celebrated. It reminded the Thompson family that even in their darkest hour, they had not been alone. For the medical staff who had witnessed the visit, it remained a highlight of their careers. They had seen many celebrities and dignitaries visit the hospital, but none had shown the genuine emotion and connection that William and Kate had displayed. It reinforced their belief in the importance of treating patients as whole people, not just medical cases. The quiet gesture had indeed moved a nation, but more importantly, it had changed lives. It had shown that compassion has no boundaries of class or status. It had demonstrated that taking time to truly see and acknowledge another's struggle is a gift beyond measure. And it had proven that sometimes the most powerful acts are those done without thought of recognition or praise. As this story spread across the years, it inspired countless other quiet gestures. People understood that they didn't need to be royal to make a difference. They just needed to be willing to see others' pain and respond with kindness. The legacy of William and Kate's hospital visit lived on in every act of unexpected compassion it inspired. The nation had been moved to tears not just by one gesture, but by the reminder of humanity's capacity for good. In a world that often felt divided and harsh, the story of a future king and queen choosing to spend an afternoon bringing joy to a sick child reminded everyone of what truly mattered. It showed that greatness isn't measured in wealth or power, but in the willingness to use whatever advantages we have to lift others up. And so, the quiet gesture that had begun with a letter from a worried mother became a movement of compassion that touched countless lives. It proved that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can create waves of change that extend far beyond what anyone could imagine. The tears shed by the nation were tears of recognition. Recognition of the power of empathy, the importance of connection, and the beautiful truth that we all have the capacity to bring light into someone else's darkness.